belongs to? One answer, guys. Microsoft, yeah. What about this one? What about this one? Very tough, wasn't it? Very tough. What about this one? Next. What about this one?
Xerox.
Okay. A very smart crowd. Anyway, this belongs to Xerox. Not this one, but Xerox. Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Toastmasters and guests, good evening. Personally, when I got to know that Xerox was actually a company, I was really surprised. It wasn't a very small company. It was pretty huge. It was a Fortune 500 company, and it was around for a very long time, about 115 years. Initially, they started off making photographic films, but with the development of printing technology, they moved into printers and copiers. In 1960, they revolutionized this industry by introducing the first commercially available printer called the Xerox 914. Put this into perspective, before the Xerox 914 came into the picture, all the copying and documenting was done by hand. This was not only expensive, but took a long time and had a lot of irregularities. Essentially, what Xerox did to this industry is similar to what the automobile did to transportation. The office space was no longer the same after Xerox. Now, around the same time Xerox launched their 914 product, another man on the other side of the United States was dreaming of something big. He was dreaming of a technology that would change the way we use computers today. Next. What? Can you guys guess what this window is? Command prompt. So this is like, it's not very clear here, but then this is the amount of code that you need to write to open Internet Explorer on the command prompt. Before 1980, all your interaction with the computer was through something like the command prompt. But then, as you guys can see, this is not very intuitive. And it did have a bit of a learning curve. So this made computers an extremely niche product. Only people who knew how to use a computer in such a way and had the enthusiasm to do so bought computers. So the market was kind of narrow. But all this changed with the invention of this man, Douglas Engelberg. He invented the graphical user interface, or the GUI. He dreamt of a computer with icons on the screen that could be clicked. He dreamt of a computer with a pointer that could be used to drag and drop stuff on the screen. He dreamt of a computer so intuitive that you wouldn't need a manual to use it. Now let's fast forward 10 more years to 1970. After an initial period of huge domination, Xerox was now at a crossroad. It was facing stiff competition from products from Japan, which were far cheaper. The people at Xerox decided, in order to stay competitive and top of the market, they had to introduce some revolutionary technology and had to have a strong research and development team. So they wrote a blank check to Xerox chief data scientist, John Hoffman. He was tasked with bringing together a team that could decide the future of Xerox. He brought in 50 of the most brilliant minds that he could find, including the guy who thought of the GUI, together into a team called the PARC. The PARC stands for Palo Alto Research Center, located in California, in what we call today as Silicon Valley. So, since so many brilliant people were in the same room, PARC's atmosphere was intense. Every idea was supposed to be challenged and got challenged. Whatever PARC did was extremely innovative. With such an intense atmosphere, a lot of the innovations that we take for granted today were invented here. To give a few examples, PARC was responsible for the invention of the Ethernet. They were responsible for making object-oriented programming. But most important to our story, they made the most refined version of the graphical user interface. They put all their huge inventions together to make the Xerox Alto. It was the first intuitive personal computer of its time. But then there was a huge problem. The Xerox management weren't interested in all this. They believed that printer and copier technologies were their future. The digital projects invented by PARC would never trump the hardware technologies which they were making. But they made a grave mistake. They didn't realize that you can't perpetually keep making money on the same technology without innovation. Now enter Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs at this time was kind of a superstar in Silicon Valley. It was just few years after Apple Computer was founded, and it had made huge profits. At this time, he had heard about what had been happening in Park and wanted to take a look. So he came there, and he was given a demo for 3 hours. After 3 hours, he said, and I quote, "He showed me 3 things, but after seeing the first one, I was so blown away that I don't remember the other 2. At that moment, I realized that this was the future of computing." Of course, what he was demoed was the GUI, and he understood this technology much better than what the Xerox executives understood when they were pressurized to do it for 3 years. The very next day, he signed a deal with Xerox, which gave him the rights to Xerox's software, and in exchange for 1,000 shares of Apple. This seemed like a very huge deal at that time. It was a great win for Xerox. But then little did Xerox know that Apple would grow to 100 times their size in the future. The next week, Microsoft came in for a demo. The next 2 years, Xerox gave 2,000 demos to common people, literally for free. In 1984, Apple released the Macintosh, one of the most revolutionary products of its time. The Macintosh had a user interface which was an exact rip-off of what Apple had seen at PARC. The Macintosh made $20 billion for Apple. A year after, Microsoft introduced a precursor to Windows, and I don't need to tell you what happened after that. A year after that, Xerox came into the game, but they were very late. Apple was already the dominant force in the market, and they couldn't trump them. The product that they launched was far inferior, and it was a humongous loss for the company, selling just 20,000 units. 10 years later, Microsoft became the largest software company in the world. Apple, the largest PC manufacturer in the world. But Xerox was still at the bottom, making the same old thing that they were doing for the past 60 years. Apart from the irony that Apple Xerox GUI from Xerox itself, there is a far deeper lesson in this story. Whatever we do in life, we must always have the bigger picture in mind. Xerox was standing on top of a gold mine, but they didn't realize it because they were too busy admiring their own feat. If they only looked broader and looked at the future, we can only speculate what could have happened. Over to you.